In a world where the MCU is on everyone's screens, be it movies or TV show, and DC is, well, doing whatever DC is doing, one question is always on my mind. What superpower would you want to have? Be it Deadpool to Superman, everyone has a preference on which power set they would want, with mine being a conduit from the Infamous games. To better explain why, let's look at the first game in the series, well, just called Infamous. During the tail end of development on Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves, the pre-production of Infamous started. Wanting to go more brazen and loud compared to the stealth games of the Sly Cooper series, and being fans of namely DC Comics, they chose a hero's origin story as the main point for the story. They wanted to make Infamous about becoming a modern day superhero, to make Cole go from a bike messenger to fighting like Thor. Still, they picked electricity for two reasons: the ease of visualization electric-based powers, and to use the city as a fuel source. They wanted Infamous and Sly Cooper to contrast each other, just like how the Mario series contrasts the Zelda series. Though, do Mario and Zelda contrast each other? Like, I get that Twilight Princess was the newest Zelda game when development began, but when Infamous came out, Phantom Hourglass was the newest, and Spirit Tracks came out a little later the same year. Some of the most Toon-like Zelda games following on from Wind Waker's art style. Although Sucker Punch also toyed around with a superhero version of Animal Crossing, which just sounds like what happens when you mix Doom into Animal Crossing again. At the end of recording the script, I realized I never mentioned about the city itself, Empire City, clearly based on New York City, for its large vertical buildings, which totally won't be a problem in the game coming up. Absolutely not. Now onto my history with Infamous. I got Infamous back in 2011 after the PSN hack, where Sony gave away free games to save face. For a lot of people, it was a horrible time to deal with, but for people like me who didn't have any info on my PlayStation account that could be stolen or worth stealing, at the time, it was just some free games to me. And I played on my brother's account for some reason, and by the time I realized it, I was in the final area of the game. But that also meant I could get all the trophies again. So who really lost there? Infamous was one of the first games that I played that had a bit more mature themes, which was also one of the reasons I enjoyed it so much back then, which also may be the reason I like more intense themes in games. We start out on the title screen with a nice little scene of Empire City that looks like it's from the Neon District before the events of the game, and as we push new game, it all goes to shit. As a huge EMP looking blast is going off that levels blocks and blasts the bus high enough to hit a helicopter. Now backing up a bit so we can get to know Cole McGrath, a bike courier who delivers a package, and like most people, Cole hates his job. On the day of the blast, Cole gets a call from his boss saying that someone wants him to deliver a package, and it has to be him. Cole agrees and delivers the package, or at least tries to, as no one is there to pick up the package, when Cole gets a call from the guy who the package goes to, and bribes Cole to open the package for $500. When Cole opens it, that's when the bomb Cole's been holding goes off, causing the blast from the title screen. Shockingly, this isn't the end of the game, and Cole is still alive in the center of the blast that leveled multiple blocks, so Cole's not looking too great, but the fact that he's still alive is pretty good in my opinion. After the blast, you can hear someone reading vital signs, and very soon Cole wakes up in the middle of the crater and gets told to go to the nearby bridge. Along the way, Cole gets electrocuted a few times, but he doesn't die. The last time is on the bridge, and then all hell breaks loose, with lightning strikes falling from the sky as the bridge collapses as Cole gets to the other side, just as Cole also collapses. As Cole slips into a coma, Empire City takes the 2020 approach to world building by locking it down with a quarantine while psychos with guns take over. But during the chaos, Cole wakes up with electrical powers and begins to train with his new powers. After getting a bit more acquainted with his powers and jumping off Zeke's roof and getting told off by his girlfriend Trish, Cole and Zeke head to get some food from a supply drop, only for the Reapers, the first of the gangs that now control the city, to try and take it from them. Of course, Cole goes in to fight them off, and we are given the first karma choice of the game, to either take all the food or let other people have their share. This is one of the better karma choices in the game because you can see the reason for both sides. But to slightly spoil it, most are black and white choices where you have to be a complete asshole to pick the evil choice. Soon after, the TV jacker comes on and tells people about the day of the blast and has pinned everything on Cole, calling him a terrorist. So with everyone starting to turn on Cole, including Trish, whose sister died in the blast, Cole and Zeke plan to make a break for the bridge and try to break the quarantine. After fighting through a blockade, Zeke busts through the gate but falls into the water and somehow safely makes it back to the neon, while Cole makes it into the decontamination unit and gets greeted by name by an FBI agent named Moya. Moya tells Cole about her husband John White, the first sons, and the Ray Sphere, the last of which is what gave Cole his powers, by draining the neuroelectric energy from people and concentrates it into someone. Moya cuts a deal with Cole: find John, get the Ray Sphere, and she'll clear Cole's name and get him out of the quarantine. Without any other option, Cole accepts. At this point, we get access to 3 missions to do. One is helping a doctor set up a makeshift medical center, and that unlocks the side quests. Oh boy! At first the side quests are fun, but very soon you notice how often they repeat. I don't even want to know how many times I've had to destroy surveillance devices on buildings. Now, some main missions can become side quests later in the game, and these aren't bad as they are shorter than the main missions. This isn't to say that they are all bad or repetitive. We have some karma-based side quests, and they are much better, or at least more interesting, than the other missions. But I really like the evil side quests. They are just about making as much mayhem as possible. To spoil on some side content a little later here in the evil side quests, you gain powerful Reapers as your buddies, and they were honestly some of my favorite parts of the evil playthrough. As I haven't done these before when I replay Infinite, I tend not to do the side quests, so this was a fun surprise for me. Back to the main story, we are getting weird signals from little dishes that we find out have been set up by John after deciphering the audio message. This sets up more side content. The first 3 are the only ones you need to complete the mission. There are some interesting story stuff that get added by these, but they are optional, but at least you can track them down if you want to. The last mission is the most important, where Cole is tracking down an electrician that has been taken by the Reapers. So we go find him. After a bit, the Reapers blow up the main power grid. I repeat, blow up the main power grid, primarily just to keep Cole drained. One dude is that big of a threat to them. But this will end up being one of the worst decisions the Reapers ever make, as this will allow Cole to go into the sewer to get the power back to the city. And there are a handful of these, so I won't be talking about all of them, but these are what give Cole new powers. In this case, 3. A heal for injured people, a bio leech which sucks electrical energy out of people, and a restraining power. So good gets more than bad, but the leeching power is great in a pinch. I've even done it on a good playthrough when I need Cole to find electricity fast. Then Cole finds the electrician, he gets past him, and returns power to the city, which I guess is a little important. For the next few missions, Cole messes with the Reapers' plans by destroying the Reapers' tar truck, a few tar barrels on water towers, and saving people from the train trapped in Reaper territory. It shows how karma can affect the story by changing cutscenes from being treated like family to frying someone to send a message. After the water tower, Cole meets a man that shows Cole visions of the future, with it being all death and destruction, leaving Cole with the feeling that this man is somehow responsible. As the mystery man disappears, Cole is left with questions like, how does he know anything about the future, and how does the Ray Sphere play into it? With the Reapers on the back foot and getting back on talking terms with Trish, the next mission has Cole informed by Moya that she has pinpointed the leader of the Reapers, a woman named Sasha, and she has a tunnel that connects the Neon to the Warren, the second island. But we have to fight through just to get to Sasha, and along the way, Cole finds people trapped in cages with the same tar being dumped onto them. Even find Reapers in them, but they are non-hostile. So are all the Reapers just forced to fight by Sasha in the tar? Sasha is someone you can't have free after what she has done, so Cole has to fight her, and she talks about dinner reservations. What? Just how far off the deep end is she? But Cole defeats her and asks himself, will his powers make him as crazy as her? Before Cole wraps his mind around it, an explosion goes off, with a group of people taking Sasha while the tunnel crumbles around him, as Cole moves on into the Warren. There are a few problems with being in the Warren. The power is still out, and a new gang Cole has to deal with, the Dustmen. So to the sewers we go! To get one of the best powers in the game, the static thrusters, which let Cole hover through the air. This is fantastic. With all the tall buildings around, you know you can get some serious airtime with this. And you know, get the power back on for the Warren, that's fine, I guess. This also, however, highlights an issue with the game. As mentioned previously, Empire City is based off New York, which has a bunch of tall buildings. Unfortunately, there is no real way to get up those buildings efficiently without just climbing them and pressing X. It starts to become a bit of an issue when you have to do it many times. It's just really annoying to do after a while. After more missions that see Zeke trying to hook up with a girl, with the only notable things from this mission are the Dustman's first conduit and his poster guy. I like him. Zeke getting captured, straining him and Cole's friendship, and getting the bridge down so Cole can go back to the Neon while learning what the Dustmen are up to, and keeping control by blowing up boats and drones. From blowing up stuff and handling Zeke to helping the hospital, with Trish asking Cole to help bring people to the hospital in the Warren from the Neon. Now, both the Reapers and the Dustmen don't like that, which is why Cole has been asked to help. After a bunch of fighting, the bus gets to the hospital, where the leader of the Dustmen, Alden, just casually throws the bus to the top of the hospital, so a bit of a problem if I do say so. Cole saves Trish from the Dustmen on the top of the hospital, and now they're on better terms. So after what Alden did, or just the fact that the police found Alden's location, Cole gets sent in to help with the arrest. Cole goes through Alden's tower to get to the Dustman's second conduit, which is a scrap monster. Cole fights it, wins, and Alden is arrested, but the Dustmen won't take it sitting down. With Alden in jail, the Dustmen are going for an all-out assault on the prison, holding nothing back to get Alden. From cutting the power to the prison to destroying the outer walls of the prison, with Cole doing his best to fight everything off, with Zeke helping keep an eye on Alden, until Zeke thinks he can help out on the front line, and then Alden wakes up and kills his way out of the prison. And Cole said if Zeke stayed there, Alden would still be locked up. But I have to ask, what would have Zeke done? He would have been killed, and you'd be down to best friend Cole. But the Dustmen celebrate their victory over the police, and more importantly, over Cole. With Alden back on the streets, all Cole can do is go get the power back on for the rest of the Warren, and get the most broken power in the game, the Polarity Wall. Polarity Wall can just turn most bullets into nothing, and 9 times out of 10, I usually have enough XP to fully upgrade it, so it's bigger, and can make energy for Cole, which means that most enemy fire at you can heal you. For example, those big scrap golem conduits, their main attack, which fires a bunch of rocks at you, just heals you to full without any energy drain. It's a little broken. After getting out of the sewer, Cole is contacted by John White to meet up with him, and upon getting to the location, a helicopter comes and freaks John out, so he bolts. And we have to try to catch up to John in the helicopter, which, to say how much trouble this mission gives me, I almost lose the chopper every time and get sent back to the halfway checkpoint. My evil playthrough was actually the first time I didn't lose the chopper. After catching up with them, a golem shoots down the chopper and somehow gets its gas tank despite the fact it blew up, and gets ready to throw it at us, which on hard leaves no time to hit it before it's fired at you, so even during my evil playthrough, I got the good karma for it. After the fight, Cole looks for John, only to find that he has bolted yet again, but hasn't cut contact with Cole, telling Cole about his new mission to get the Ray Sphere, and how he's never been married, doesn't know anyone named Moya, and hates the FBI, leaving Cole with a lot more questions about who to believe. One thing John did tell Cole is where the Ray Sphere is currently located, and that he needs someone that he can trust to help him, so Cole gets Zeke to help him climb up Alden's tower to find the Ray Sphere. With Alden and his goons at the top and throughout the tower, Cole fights him off while Zeke gets the Ray Sphere out of where Alden has it. After doing that, Zeke finds himself stuck between Alden, the mystery man from before named Kessler, and seeing a third option, Zeke tries setting off the Ray Sphere. That would kill who knows how many to try to get superpowers. However, it doesn't work. Kessler, being unsurprised by this, tells Zeke that if he goes with him, he can give him powers. So, Zeke goes with Kessler, sending Alden into a rage, while Cole is still in disbelief of what happened. Unfortunately, Cole doesn't have the time to work through what's just happened, as Alden is an immediate problem as he is raging on the bridge to the historic district to try to get revenge on Kessler, something that would kill a lot of people in the crossfire, so Alden can't be left alone, so it's a boss fight. After fighting very few enemies to get to Alden, who's a huge scrap golem, it's really cool looking, but kind of easy, especially with the polarity wall we got not too long ago, so one of his attacks just heals you while the others are pretty easy to deal with. So you're blasting him till he goes down, while at most avoiding fire. So when Alden goes down, he tries to make a deal with Cole to join up with him to take down Kessler. As Cole hesitates to think about it, Alden jumps from the bridge, a fall that would kill any normal person. But as a conduit, Alden can survive that fall, leaving Cole to walk into the historic district alone. And Cole's life isn't going to be getting any easier from here. In fact, it's going to get worse, as Kessler has set up bombs all over the historic district with people next to the bomb so Cole can't ignore them. Mainly because Kessler has Trish, and the final bomb is a karma choice. And this has to be my favorite one in the game, as Kessler strings Trish up on one building and on another is 6 doctors, and of course Cole only has time to disarm one bomb. So Cole has to pick Trish or 6 doctors. However, no matter which choice you choose, Trish dies, as Kessler has actually tricked Cole. So whichever one he picks, Trish is on the other one, so it's a false choice. And that's why it's impactful. This is the only false choice in the game, but you question every other choice in the game. And it's so effective at making both the player question things and piss off Cole. Cole's first step to get back at Kessler is to get the power back on in the historic district, but it's not the same as before, as it's on an old system. So it is partly in the sewers, and it has 3 substations above ground that need to charge. But it gives power back to the whole district and gives Cole his most powerful attack, called the Lightning Storm, later renamed Ionic Storm in the future games, where Cole rains down lightning like he's Thor, decimating anything that gets in his way. It also uses the 6-axis thing that Sony want to shoehorn into games, and it works fine. It's also the only time 6-axis is used. So Cole goes to the substations, destroys the army worth of people that Kessler has sent, and gets power back on to the last part of the city. After destroying some toxic balloons and satellite dishes, John gets everything he needs ready for the Ray Sphere. One problem: Kessler had anti-air missiles set up, and Moya begins sending an armed force, which actually doesn't do anything. Nothing gets destroyed by them, and maybe it was just to try to get Cole to comply, but it didn't work, so what was the point? Once Kessler's missiles are dealt with, John crash lands the helicopter, and Cole and John are face to face with the Ray Sphere. Cole is given a choice to destroy the Ray Sphere or use it to gain more power. With this being the last choice, it is also one of the best, as you don't know what Kessler can do or how powerful he is. But is the cost of life that another blast worth it? It's what I wish more karma choices were, something that isn't so black and white, but a bit more gray. No matter your choice, something goes wrong with the Ray Sphere, the case opens up, and tears John apart, killing him. And with only one more thing to do, it's time to fight Kessler. Meeting where it all started, the crater from the blast. Cole and Kessler enter the ring to fight for the death. Cole remembers Kessler's voice though from the day of the blast, reading his pulse and whatnot. Kessler says that he's always been there every step of Cole's life. You know, very weird. When the fight starts, we see Kessler can basically teleport, and all his attacks are electricity based, like Cole's. As the fight goes on, Kessler talks about Cole's family and how ashamed of him they are. But as the fight starts to go south for Cole, Zeke shows up to try to play hero for Cole, and he gets blasted off, but it gives Cole enough time to get back up. It even shows that Zeke regrets what he did. As the fight starts to wind down with this fucking damage sponge, Cole gets the hit in he needs to put Kessler down with a good old lightning storm to finish the fight. With the fight won, Cole hears Kessler say, "Trish, I love you. Please forgive me," before jumping on Cole to show him more of the future and of a beast that destroys the world. In the early days, Kessler could have stopped it, but he ran with his family, leaving everyone else to die. And by the time Kessler realized this mistake, it was too late. The world was gone. His family was gone. But Kessler comes up with a plan. Use his newest power for a one-way trip back in time to get Cole ready to fight the beast, to be the hero he wasn't, with his soul linked to the past being a photo from his wedding day, where he married Trish, with Zeke as his best man. I am saying this verbatim from the cutscene, despite the fact I wrote it differently, just because of how much of an impact it left on me as a kid. Because Cole and Kessler being one of the same really blew my mind, partially because this was the first time it ever happened in a story that I played or experienced. But Cole isn't happy about this, and he knows what he has to do. The last thing you see is a little monologue from Cole based on the karma ending you got. It really doesn't mean anything, but it does leave a handful of questions, like what are the other enemy leaders doing now that they're free from Kessler? What's Moya doing now that she doesn't have Cole? And one that I would like an answer to is, how old was Kessler? Because from my rough guess, he was 70 to 80 years old at best, and at worst being over 100, with the main baseline being Alden. it could really go either way. Overall, I think the story works. There's just a few places where I thought it could be better. Things like Sasha, she was just brought into the story with no build-up. She just comes out of nowhere, but she does explain the Reapers. It just doesn't work as well as it could. I say that, then remember about the dead drops you can find, but they are optional, so you could not care about them if you don't want to hunt them down. The only other real collectible in the game is the blast shards, which there's a lot of to increase Cole's power output, but after a certain point they don't do that anymore, and there's a lot of them in the game. So collect whatever you can find and try not to go for the trophy, because let's face it, only idiots do that, and I'm the biggest idiot of them all. Despite the fact I've not gotten the trophy yet. As a superpower origin story, it works and sets up for what's to come next, and does well to make Cole a likable character while still having him go through some shit. There really isn't much to say about the characters. The ones we meet work even if we don't learn that much about them. The one I would have liked to learn more about is actually the TV Jacker from the beginning of the game. That's the only time he's really relevant. You can see him pop up on TVs around the city, along with a news station that tell completely different narratives for the same stories, with the TV Jacker trying to give power to the people for Cole's actions, while the news says Cole's actions were from the military, which to an extent is actually true considering Cole was working for Moya. It's not the whole truth, but it's still more true than the TV Jacker. But close to the end of the game, the TV Jacker gets taken out by a raid, and the news station now becomes your only source of outside news, where it talks about him being the terrorist, which ironic twist of fate, but you also are left questioning after everything you've seen with them how true it is. The soundtrack for a game is pretty important. It sets the tone for the narrative structure and whatnot, and how you should feel in like intense action or whatnot. And honestly, for the Infamous game, I think this kind of can go for the series as a whole. For the most part, I don't notice it. There's probably about one song I could place as in the Infamous series from this game, and that's pretty much the generic fight theme. Otherwise, not really. There's a few others from the other games that I could probably place, but not from this one. Graphically, this game has aged like milk you put out in the sun in 2009, but like most games from this time, I have to give it a little bit of a pass because the PS3 was actually pretty hard to work with, but once you got used to it, you could pull off some great stuff. But you can also tell it's Sucker Punch's first try at this, and it isn't bad for a first time for the PS3 anyway, but looking back, it's really bad. As a side note, that's actually why PS3 games are only streamed on the new PS Plus service thing, as even trying to emulate games for the PS3 is really hard. Gameplay is another thing that is a product of its time, being a cover shooter which were really popular back then. Thankfully, Infamous moves more and more away from this as the games move on. There are some enemies that are bullshit, like the shotgun ones. They rush you and on hard can one-hit KO you. The Dustmen don't have one, thankfully, but the First Sons can turn invisible. So how is that fair? The good thing is they're used relatively sparingly. The only other thing I really should mention is the term conduit. There's no in-story explanation to how Cole or anyone finds out about this. The most logical conclusion is Moya knew about it and told Cole about conduits. But even that explanation has a few holes considering they're never expressly mentioned as conduits. Probably not to tell people that only certain people can have abilities, but the only way you know that they're called conduits is when you defeat one in battle. It literally tells you conduit defeated. The absolute last thing I should mention is how you can play it nowadays. The only real way to play it is on PS Plus streaming services, which is hit or miss from what I've heard. So if you can afford it, I'd say buy a PS3 off of eBay or some local marketplace and find a copy of Infamous. It goes for relatively cheap. For example, my copy I got for about $1 Canadian. But if you can't afford that option and can justify the streaming service a bit more because of the larger variety of games you can play, then I do recommend Infamous as long as you don't have to go too far out of your way for it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know how I did in the comments down below and subscribe for more if you want to. Hopefully the next video won't take nearly as long. Anyway, I'm MrGaryBoy1. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Later.